On the news, Pope Francis's urgent appeal on the day set aside to pray for peace in Ukraine. Please, no more war. New York's mask mandate is back in effect while Governor Hochul appeals a ruling that says she lacks the authority to order face covering statewide.
Catholic schools say they're finally getting the resources they need to keep kids safe from COVID-19. And in the classroom, I'm Jessica Easthope. That story is ahead.
Plus, details on the funeral for police officer Wilbert Laura, whose organ donations have saved the lives of 5 people. I'm Christine Persichetti. Current News starts right now.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. And we start our 12 hours marathon for the prayer for peace in Ukraine.
All around the globe, Catholic churches are taking part in a prayer marathon, asking the Lord to defuse the ticking time bomb that is happening now in Ukraine. Tensions are rising between Russia and the Ukraine as Russian troops mass around the border. President Joe Biden hoping to deter the invasion with action, threatening sanctions and military deployment. The Holy Father, however, is hoping to use the power of prayer, declaring this a day of prayer for Ukraine.
Invito a pregare per la pace in Ucraina e a farlo spesso nel corso di questa giornata. Chiediamo con insistenza al Signore che quella terra possa veder fornire la fraternità, superare ferite, paure, divisioni.
The Pope pleading to those in power for no more war, asking on the eve of Holocaust Remembrance Day to also remember the 5 million Ukrainians who were annihilated during the last war.
È un popolo sofferente, ha sofferto la fame, ha sofferto tante crudeltà e merita la pace. Le preghiere e le invocazioni che oggi si levano fino al cielo tocchino le menti e i cuori dei responsabili in terra, perché facciano prevalere il dialogo e il bene di tutti sia anteposto agli interessi di parte. Per favore, mai la guerra.
Russian troops are currently on the Ukrainian border preparing for an invasion, and up to 8,500 U.S. troops are now on heightened alert for a possible deployment to Eastern Europe, while NATO allies are sending jets and ships to the region.
We have no intention of putting American forces or NATO forces in Ukraine, but there are going to be serious economic consequences if he moves.
This as Russia announces new military exercises, sending more equipment to Belarus, including surface-to-air missile system units, blaming Washington's decision for the escalation and continuing to demand security concessions from Ukraine and NATO.
If anyone makes a concession on Ukraine, behind Ukraine's back, first, we will not accept that.
Ukraine says Russia is trying to destabilize the country ahead of any planned military invasion, but the Kremlin denies it's planning to attack and argues that NATO support for Ukraine constitutes a growing threat on Russia's western flank. The papal representative in Ukraine said the Holy Father's appeal was received as very important news in the country. The day of prayer comes after Pope Francis prayed for Christian unity at the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls in Rome. Christians of different denominations, as well as different ecumenical leaders, gathered for the Vespers prayer service Tuesday evening. It followed a week of prayer for unity centered around the theme, "We saw the star in the east and we came to worship him." New York's mask mandate is back in effect. An appeals court judge restored the mandate on Tuesday, a day after a lower court judge ruled that Governor Kathy Hochul lacked the authority to order people to wear face coverings. The mandate will remain in place while the governor's administration pursues an appeal. The state mask mandate ended in June of last year, but Governor Hochul announced in December that it would go back into effect for at least a month. Schools in the Diocese of Brooklyn have spoken out against the mandate in a letter written by the Office of the Superintendent. They had hoped Governor Hochul's mandate would be eliminated and that they can make masks in class optional. The Catholic schools have said they will be following the state mandate. Meanwhile, those schools in the Brooklyn Diocese are now getting the resources they say is needed to keep students safe in the classroom. Jessica Easthope is in Gravesend with details on COVID test distribution.
These take-home rapid COVID-19 tests are the first and only assistance Our Lady of Grace Catholic Academy has ever gotten from the city or state.
It's just our continued effort to slow the spread of COVID. Another preventive strategy to make sure our children are safe.
Students took home the tests this week. Parents say they opened their backpacks and found relief.
It saves money. We've had to buy tests at the CVS and everything for ourselves. It's not cheap. You know, and we do a lot of testing over these past couple of years.
Tests are expensive and they're hard to find, and if your child isn't feeling well, it's hard to get to the store. So it's a great resource that we now have the tool at home.
But not all parents say more testing is the answer.
Hold hands.
Jennifer Carreri says she's happy Catholic schools are finally being given what DOE students are, but thinks that it's up to parents to be responsible.
I feel like if my kids are sick or cold or anything, I'm quick to keep them home, bring them to the doctors, double check everything. So I feel like, bottom line, if your kid's not feeling well, keep them home.
7th grade.
A sentiment echoed by educators who are still working to keep cases under control.
You know your children best. When the symptoms aren't there, then they return back to school.
During the course of the pandemic, for public schools, supplies have been at the ready. Our Lady of Grace had to completely replace fundraising with PPE in the school budget and rely on private donations for wipes, sanitizer, and cleaning supplies. Councilman Robert Holden fought to make a change.
You really have to offer to everyone to stop the pandemic. And thousands of people, if you just ignore them, it's still going to spread.
And now teachers say this is one more way to prevent students from falling behind.
You were out for a week or 2 weeks. It's really hard to recover from that, and that was constantly happening. And now at least we have something where we can get them back as soon as possible.
Diocese of Brooklyn students are able to use these to test back in when there's an outbreak at school. Schools were given a supply from the state and city so they can restock as needed. In Gravesend, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Across the country, COVID-related staff shortages are so bad at some schools that administrators are desperate for help. So they're coming up with some creative ways to get substitute teachers in the classroom. Ed Lavandera reports.
In Hayes County, south of Austin, so many teachers are sick with COVID-19 or in quarantine, school district officials are asking parents to become substitute teachers. Jan Stone answered the call, and this morning she's teaching second graders.
Good morning, how are you? I am Mrs. Stone. I am going to be your substitute today.
And as you're sitting at home and you're watching this latest surge and teachers are calling in sick and staffing shortages, were you worried that your kids were going to be sent home?
Absolutely. I look at the thing, it's like, okay, not their class this week, not this class. So yeah, I'm very concerned about that. That totally derails life for us.
One day last week, school officials here say they needed 455 substitutes, but could only fill 40% of the spots. The staffing shortage sends school administrators scrambling to figure out where to put kids without a teacher. Hayes Consolidated School Superintendent Eric Wright says they're doing whatever it takes to keep the doors open.
I talk to kids a lot, and they just tell me that the quality of education is so much better in person than it was remote.
How close has it come to the point where, hey, we just need to shut everything down, we don't have the staff to keep going?
Pretty close, but we've been able to keep our head above water.
But it sounds like you're on the razor's edge. Like this could go either way on any given day.
Yes, you're correct.
In Oklahoma, school resource police officers helped fill in when teachers were out sick. To keep schools open, the Oklahoma governor is allowing state employees to work as substitute teachers. In New Mexico, the governor is expected to work as a substitute this week as she's pushing state employees and National Guard members to fill staffing shortages as well.
That was Ed Lavandera reporting. Some schools across the country have been forced to go back to remote learning because of the staggering numbers of COVID cases among teachers. Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett went back to visit the Catholic elementary school she attended. Barrett spoke to the students at Catherine of Siena Elementary School in Metairie, Louisiana, where she graduated in 1986. She told students her Catholic education helped her develop a passion for reading and served as a launching pad for her becoming a lawyer and judge. Her advice to the students: study very hard, work hard, and dream. Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer is planning to retire. This will give President Biden a chance to nominate someone to the bench. The 83-year-old liberal has served nearly 3 decades on the High Court and is expected to step down at the end of the current session. Biden's pick will not change the balance of the court, which has 6 conservative justices and 3 liberals. New York Governor Kathy Hochul holding the first meeting of her task force on illegal guns Wednesday. The group includes officials from 9 northeastern states and multiple levels of law enforcement. They're hoping to reduce the movement of illegal weapons, a crime Governor Hochul says is on the rise around the nation.
We have to make sure that we're working together. And this is not a New York phenomenon. This is a national phenomenon. And we now have to pull together all the tools in a concerted way, not just deploying what we have available to us here in the state of New York, which is exceptional, but also saying, where are these guns coming from? They're not originating here in the state of New York.
Hochul says firearm homicides have skyrocketed since 2019, up 80%. President Joe Biden is meeting with New York City Mayor Eric Adams to talk about gun violence, as according to the White House. The meeting is set to take place in Manhattan next Thursday. They'll focus on President Biden's, quote, comprehensive strategy to combat gun crime. That plan includes funding for cities and states to put more cops on the street and to invest in prevention programs. We're learning today that police officer Wilbert Mora's organ donations have saved the lives of 5 people, including 3 from New York. Meanwhile, the funeral for Mora, who died days after he and his partner Jason Rivera were shot while responding to a domestic disturbance call in Harlem, will be held at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Mora's funeral will take place next Wednesday, February 2nd at 10 a.m. A viewing service will be held at the cathedral the day before, Tuesday, February 1st, from 1 to 8 p.m. Officer Rivera's wake is Thursday, January 27th at St. Patrick's Cathedral. The viewing is from 1 to 8 p.m. Friday, January 28th will be his funeral mass, which begins at 9 a.m. And be sure to tune in online, as Currents News will carry the funeral mass live. That's at Currents News on Facebook and Twitter. And we also want to tell you about a new Currents News series that will be airing this Thursday. It will feature parishioners from all over the Diocese of Brooklyn who are helping communities and their parishes thrive. Our first stop will be St. Matthias Parish in Ridgewood, Queens, where 2 longtime parishioners, a mom and her daughter, have organized a special food pantry for those struggling to make ends meet during the ongoing pandemic. One parishioner, Rosa, is grateful for the helping hand.
Yo me siento muy agradecida con la comunidad.
She said that it has been a very great help for her and for her family. It has been very helpful for her to be supported by the community of St. Matthias, especially right now in this time of a lot of necessities, a lot of difficulties going on, both economically as well as not having any jobs opportunities right now.
Lillian and her mom helping their hard-hit community make their way through the pandemic. Join us for their story Thursday at 7 for our very first Pulse of the Parish. There's a lot more news headed your way. The new DA in Los Angeles is getting heat over his handling of thieves breaking into cargo trains and stealing packages. The Coast Guard searching for dozens of people who are missing after a boat capsized off the coast of Florida. And why Vice President Kamala Harris is traveling to Honduras next week.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
Rail theft on the rise in Los Angeles. Thieves climbing aboard cargo trains, breaking into containers and stealing packages. But who's to blame? According to Union Pacific, the Los Angeles District Attorney lies at the heart of this mess. But that's not all. LA's new DA is also facing a wave of criticism from police, businesses, and even his own prosecutors over policies they say aren't tough enough on criminals. As Nick Watt reports, it comes as the City of Angels records its highest homicide total since 2007.
Downtown Los Angeles, packages are being stolen from trains. That trash is the aftermath. Union Pacific blames in large part LA's newish, wokish district attorney, elected in the wake of George Floyd's murder and flanked for his one-year anniversary presser by progressive DAs from around the country.
We have set a path for ourselves to turn around the criminal legal system in this country.
Gascon has ordered his deputy DAs, no under 18s charged as adults, no more 3 strikes, and in many cases, do not even prosecute most misdemeanors like trespassing. And don't seek more prison time if guns or gangs are involved. But Union Pacific is now actually asking the DA to rethink his reforms because of this. They claim more than 100 arrests have been made, but apparently not one prosecution.
They have not presented 100 cases, okay? They did not present 100 cases to us. That's misleading.
Gascon also taking heat after a spate of smash and grab robberies before Christmas.
Whether it's fair or not to point the finger at him, the finger is being pointed.
The DA easily survived one recall attempt last year, but now faces another.
He has abandoned all of us victims in favor of criminals.
The union that represents Gascon's own deputy DAs is suing him.
Yes, it is rare.
Claiming the directives are not merely radical, but plainly unlawful.
He has created this environment where there's no accountability. Criminals are arrested, and within 24 hours, they're back on the street committing crime.
Latest stats from the sheriff show robbery, burglary, and arson have actually fallen since Gascon took office. Unclear why, could be COVID. But like many places, murder is way up. For now, Gascon's reforms roll on.
If at some point the voters decide that this is not the direction that they want to go, and they want to go in a different direction, that's what a democracy is all about.
By the way, he just wrote back to Union Pacific about all those stolen packages, passing the buck back to them. UP does little to secure or lock trains, he wrote.
That was Nick Watt reporting. Union Pacific says it started reporting the increase in robberies around November of 2020. And just last Thursday, California Governor Gavin Newsom announced a multi-agency push to clean up the tracks, as well as a planned state effort to combat the robberies. The search is on. The U.S. Coast Guard recovering one body off the coast of Florida as they continue to look for survivors in what they're calling a case of suspected human smuggling. It comes after a Good Samaritan saved one man's life, discovering the survivor clinging to the hull of a capsized boat just 40 miles off the coast of the Sunshine State.
We often rely on sometimes heroic acts of Good Samaritans operating in the marine environment, and this case is no exception. We're deeply grateful that that mariner located the survivor in this case and saved his life.
The survivor told authorities he left the island of Bimini in the Bahamas Saturday night, along with 39 others. Bimini, which is only 80 miles from Miami, is often used as a stepping stone for Cuban and Haitian refugees trying to get into the States. And in hopes of tackling the root causes of migration, Vice President Kamala Harris is making her way to Honduras, traveling there to attend the inauguration of the country's new president-elect, Xiomara Castro. The visit comes as the Biden administration voices high hopes for the newly elected official, saying this is an opportunity for the country to better understand why so many migrants are making their way to the southern border from Central America. Still to come on Currents News, Pope Francis reveals he has knee problems, what he told the pilgrims who came to see him. And a quick-thinking and fast-running Good Samaritan helps police capture a suspected car thief, and it's all caught on camera. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back.
spiegarvi che oggi non potrò andare fra voi per salutarvi perché ho un problema nella gamba destra.
Pope Francis, known for his usual greeting of the crowds during his general audiences, stayed seated Wednesday. The pontiff suffering from an inflamed ligament in his knee. Still, that didn't stop the Pope from being with his people. Pilgrims were allowed to come up to him. An encounter with the Pope often has a lasting effect on people of faith. But now we have the story of a priest who influenced a saint. Claudia Torres reports on the now blessed Father Rutilio Grande and his close connection to the popular Salvadorian saint, St. Oscar Romero.
Father Rutilio Grande was an advocate for peasants' rights during a difficult time in El Salvador. That's why in 1977 he was assassinated alongside 2 laymen who were with him, a teenager and an elderly man. His death deeply moved a local bishop and old friend of his, Oscar Romero, who from that moment on dedicated himself to serving the poor in a unique way.
La muerte de Rutilio's death was a moment, an instant in Romero's life, which led him to turn to God with a question, what will I do? And God led him along unexpected paths, the path of the poor, and in a new way, because Oscar Romero had always served the poor, but now he was being called to become, in a certain sense, the voice of the poor.
Father Rutilio Grande's assassination came 1 month after Oscar Romero's ordination as the Bishop of San Salvador. It was the most politically significant position for a bishop in the country.
They were friends and very similar, both with peasant backgrounds, poor, with similar temperaments. Both men were introverted, reserved, reflective, and they were able to help each other in difficult moments. That's why Rutilio's death for Oscar Romero wasn't just any death, it was the death of his brother.
2 laymen died alongside Father Rutilio. They were Manuel Solórzano and Nelson Rutilio Lemus, who were accompanying the priest on his way to celebrate Mass.
They knew Father Rutilio had received death threats, and they knew that the priest had that fear. Father Rutilio himself asked people not to accompany him anywhere because he knew his life could come to a fatal end at any moment. So all 3 died as martyrs.
Oscar Romero and Rutilio Grande and his 2 companions weren't the only ones from those difficult years in El Salvador to be declared martyrs. Another was a Capuchin friar, Cosmes Pesoto, who met a similar fate.
That was Claudia Torres reporting. Blessed Grande's beatification means he is 1 step away from becoming a saint himself. A wild police chase in Houston ends when a Good Samaritan, who is a former track athlete, jumps in and takes the suspect down, and it's all caught on camera. Shelley Childers has our story.
Citizen going after him.
A citizen takedown this afternoon in northwest Harris County.
I just ran behind him, tackled him down.
26-year-old Devin, a former high school track athlete and trained security guard, was in the right place at the right time.
I saw him, the suspect, running all the way down, and he was already like 50 yards from the officer. So I turned around and sped up and blocked him in, and I got out the car and started running.
This guy here.
Precinct 4 constable deputies say this all began when the suspect was spotted driving a stolen truck on the Beltway. They tried to pull him over, but they say he took off. The pursuit winding up and down the Beltway near Fairbanks and in and out of neighborhoods before finally ending behind this industrial complex. But that suspect took off on foot, climbing a fence, and that's when the 26-year-old says his instincts kicked in.
I was not even thinking. I just got out in like a hero moment.
Wow.
Sprinting after the suspect, he lost both of his shoes, and with a big bear hug.
I was thinking about in the moment, make sure I have all his hands real tight, because I didn't know he had something in his pocket.
The barefooted suspect was taken down.
He say, okay. I say, stay down, don't move. He say, okay, I'm gonna stay down.
Through all of this, Devin has words of encouragement for the suspect, who has not yet been named.
Like, I wish him the best. Like, you learn from your first mistake. Like, whenever you get out, try to be on your best behavior and not get in no more trouble.
Citizen going after him.
What a story. That was Shelley Childers reporting. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.